but I think quite a few of you, when we did a polling, half of you are actually going to take a vacation. But hopefully you guys are watching this via video. We're going to publish it on YouTube. So first of all, I want to introduce you to Sotirios. He has been an instructor at RevoU for batch 1 and batch 2. In the current batch, he's not currently teaching, but hopefully in the future, he will be teaching again. Sotirios was previously the lead digital marketing instructor at General Assembly in Singapore. And then currently he's the founder and head of product marketing at XYZ Lab. It's a digital agency based in Singapore that he founded. And funnily enough, really quick story, one of our batch 1 students through the RevoU Labs project did work for XYZ Lab. And that student has been poached by it's called UbiClan, which is like a startup here in Indonesia. And so he's starting work later this month. And so Sotirios and I talked, and we'll talk about the details at the end. For those of you interested in kind of content marketing, there is a position open through Labs. So any student in batch 3 that has gone through SEO, that has gone through that will be going through content marketing next week, will definitely or should be qualified to be able to help. At the end, if you're interested in the position, please DM me. You will be working directly with Sotirios, our instructor for tonight. So it should be exciting. Note that the previous student that worked with Sotirios recently just got hired. So he's looking for a replacement in Labs. But this time Sotirios is looking for someone who will be interested in working full-time down the line with XYZ Labs. So look at it as like a 1 month, possibly 2 month test for you guys to work with Sotirios. He will be looking to hire if you're good. So this is an opportunity for any one of you that wants to work remotely in Indonesia, but with a Singaporean agency with Sotirios. So it's an open opportunity. And anybody that's interested, feel free to DM me or talk to anybody at RevoU. Okay, so without further ado, I'll give Sotirios the floor. Tonight's topic is about marketing automation. And I want to give you a quick introduction why we're sharing this. First of all, in the RevoU program, or digital marketing program, you guys will be learning the fundamentals of the main channels that you need to know. You need to learn performance marketing, performance measurement, knowing how to measure all of your marketing performance. Secondly, marketing analytics. Then you look at the performance marketing or the advertising through Facebook ads and Google ads. Then you learn SEO, content marketing, social media, and also CRM. Now, in any of that, you're not specifically learning about marketing automation, but marketing automation is one of those skills that you can add to your tool belt to make you a much more complete T-shaped marketer. And what Sotirios is going to do tonight is not give you everything that you need to know about marketing automation, but he'll give you a comprehensive introduction to it so that you can kind of learn on your own, delve deep into it, seek out some mentors, including Sotirios himself. Feel free to add him on LinkedIn, say hi. I attended your lecture at RevoU. He's a very nice guy. So I think he'll be more than happy to kind of lead you in the right direction for you to sharpen your skills in this particular area. So Sotirios, thank you very much for sharing tonight. I'll give the floor to you. And as always, guys, if you have any questions, Amelia has shared a link to Slido in the chat, and feel free to chat away in the chat room. Okay. Sotirios, it's all yours.
Great. So first of all, thank you, Razi, for the introduction. So first things first, my name is Sotirios. It's probably the most difficult name you will come across in Asia and in Southeast Asia. This is because I originally come from Greece, which is a very far away place. But until COVID-19, I was kind of a moving expat, right? So I got my first job in London very long time ago in a media agency in the beginning of digital marketing. From there, I didn't really like the weather there. So I moved to Dubai. I spent 5 years in Middle East working for agencies like Mediacom, mainly under WPP, and also with some companies there as a consultant. And for the last 4 years, I live and work in Singapore. I came in Singapore for another agency under Omnicom to work for Unilever around the region. From there, I made a switch to General Assembly, which is also a school of digital marketing and other tech disciplines. And for the last 1.5 years, I also founded my own company, and I'm kind of independent now, working for XYZ Lab. Also with COVID-19 now, it's a new situation that we are exploring, that everything is kind of remote. So this is more or less my background. As Razi told you, I taught for RevoU before, batch 1 and 2, Google Analytics, Google Ads. I had a very great experience actually being part of the program. And indeed, I've been working with a RevoU graduate for the last 3 months. The graduate is moving on, and there is a position we're going to discuss later on about it after we finish this short session. So this session is kind of informal, so don't be shy to ask questions. Don't take it as if it's a real lecture. It's more of you understanding what marketing automation is all about, what we can do with marketing automation, and when and how we use this thing that is called marketing automation, right? So first of all, what is it, right? Essentially, the process of eliminating manual tasks. Is the process of making your life a little bit easier, and especially for people who tend to be a little bit lazy, and they don't really like, for example, heavy reporting, or they don't really like all these administration tasks. This process of automating all these tasks is very, very important, and this is, in my belief, where the future is going, not only in marketing, but in a lot of disciplines out there, right? Now, if we are to demystify that, right, because marketing automation may sound a little bit vague. What can we automate? How do we get started? A lot of questions, even for me, came up when I was creating this mini deck, right? So to take things to the beginning, we need to think about marketing as a process first, right? In a very top level situation, marketing has 4 different steps that we are going to go through no matter what we are working on, right? So the first step is always understanding, is always grabbing the insights about our project. Whether we are into SEO, the first thing we need to do is keyword research. If we are into social media, the first thing we need to do is we need to understand our audience. If we are into Google Ads, the first thing we need to do again is to understand the landscape, right? So regardless of what area we are in, the first step is always insights. And then from there, we need to take these insights and translate them into implementation, which is the second step, right? So we get the knowledge, the understanding, we digest the information, we turn them into action, into marketing campaigns. Once we execute these marketing campaigns, then we get another set of data. And then our task is dual, right? So we need to report the findings back to our stakeholders. And this is the same for people who work in agencies or people who work in-house. There is always a layer of reporting, and there is also a layer of optimization, right? So there is always the need to take these data points and implement, basically, recalibrate our marketing campaigns and optimize them, right? So essentially, we have this type of 4-step process in anything marketing, ballpark, right? And then this is, again, regardless of what we are working on or which field we are working on, it always looks the same. Now, marketing automation, where does it come in? We're going to start in reverse, right? So the very first thing that we can automate, and the very first opportunity that arises, and one of the most important automations that we can actually implement to make our life easier, is to start by automating reporting, right? So the reporting traditionally, and even until today, believe it or not, I still work with very big companies. Lately, I got a big project, and I was shocked to realize that an agency in the UK was still reporting in Excel sheets and PowerPoint, and not really in online platforms, right? So traditionally, reporting was one of the heavier tasks that we have to face as digital marketers. I remember my life as a digital marketer in Dubai was 60 to 70%, I was dealing with reporting, extracting data and formatting them in Excel sheets and PowerPoint. That was probably half of my life when I was living in Dubai, was to report. Very heavy as a task. And reporting is a task that, to a very large extent, it is also not really something that adds value to the marketing company or adds value to the client in terms of extracting the data and presenting them. What adds value is interpreting this data and analyzing this data. So for a very long time, we've been spending the majority of our time extracting this data and formatting them, right? So this is the main opportunity and one of the biggest opportunities to automate our lives here. The second part of marketing automation that came up with technology and what technology is improving, the second area of marketing automation is, can we actually automate optimization, right? So all these tasks, for example, that we used to take in the past, now you're probably new in digital marketing, but for a very long time, for example, we used to optimize the bids in Google Ads manually. We used to actually turn them up, turn them down every day. There was a human there optimizing the bids. When Facebook launched, there was no automated optimization. There were no bidding strategies there. There was no delivery option. Let's go with lowest cost, or let's go with something else. So we had to actually do that manually, right? So a lot of marketing automation you are already experiencing without really understanding it, that is there, right? So a lot of selecting bid strategies or selecting how the system is going to optimize your campaign, even selecting the objective in Facebook, is marketing automation that is already embedded in our daily lives. These things didn't exist in the past. In the past, we had to deliberately give instructions to the system to go one way or another, right? So that's the first layer we can automate. And the third layer is implementation, right? Which is essentially the holy grail, I would say, of marketing automation. Can we create a system that is entirely automated, which means with no human interaction, this machine is going to run in the back? We are not fully there yet. Technology is still improving and is still evolving, but we're going to discuss a few options of how can we automate certain aspects of marketing through in the implementation area, right? So let's take things one by one, first of all, and we're going to start with the simplest form of automation, right? Which is reporting automation. Now, all reporting is moving online. Companies that still report on Excels and PowerPoints and keynotes, they're going to slowly start falling behind. There is a massive shift for companies to use technologies like Tableau, like Data Studio, like Power BI from Microsoft. There is a very large move of bringing all the reports online. Now, how does this work? I'm also going to show you a couple of examples, right? So mainly for what I'm doing now, I'm working with Google Data Studio as the main reporting platform. And how it works is that these online platforms, they can connect data from different sources. For example, we can connect data from Google Analytics, from Google Ads, from Facebook, from Instagram, from YouTube, from email, even from third-party sources like Google Sheets, for example, or CRM platforms, into a single interface. And there we can build dashboards that are mainly drag and drop, right? So drag and drop means, imagine how you build a website on Wix, or how you build a landing page, for example, in any other tool that essentially you are dragging and dropping elements. And then here you are, you have a landing page, for example, or here you are, you have a website. Data Studio, Tableau, Power BI, they work in the same way, but for building reports, right? So how does this look and what are the benefits, right? So I'm just going to showcase you a couple of examples, right? So example number one, I believe you can see my screen. This is kind of a demo report that I have for showcase purposes. Instead of creating a report for Google Analytics, for example, on an Excel sheet or a PowerPoint and having to refresh it, we bring this online And this is completely interactive, which means that we create it as a one-off, and I can change the dates as a client, for example, or as a stakeholder here. I can say I want to see data from May 1st to June 30. I can apply, and then the data will refresh automatically. I can say I want to see only mobile data. I can apply this, then the system will basically refresh everything, right? So the benefit is that it saves a lot of time. And also, as I said, this is a solution that we can connect a lot of different data sources together, right? So what is the benefit of this type of solutions is that we have clients, for example, or we work with companies. Again, it's relevant either to agencies or in-house roles, where we are not only dealing with a website. It's not only our website. It's Facebook, it's Google, it's CRM, it's SEO. If you think about how you report for all these things, how do you report, for example, for your Facebook campaign? Someone will say, we go to Facebook ads. That's one platform, right? Then how do you report if you run Google ads campaigns? Then we go to Google ads. That's a second platform. Then how do you report your SEO? You go to Search Console. That's a third platform. And how do you report maybe on some other data, maybe your conversion data? This data we get from the website. That's a fourth platform. So as a typical marketer, you will have to jump from 1, 2, 3, 4 platforms, download all the data, then merge them on an Excel, then bring them on a PowerPoint. This will take you a lot of time, right? So sources and platforms like Data Studio can basically merge these data sources under a single dashboard. So this is an example report that we have data, these data here that come from Google Ads automatically. These data here come from, Facebook ads. These data come from Google Ads. These data here come from Shopify. And these data here come from a Google Sheet. So instead of me going to all these platforms and grabbing all the data, then going on Excel, merging them, creating the graphs, presenting them on a PowerPoint, I throw all the data in one place and I automate my report. Then what I can do, especially with Data Studio or with similar solutions, is we can have different pages on the same report. For example, on the same dashboard report, I can only have a view that gives me my Facebook ads performance. And then I can only have a view, for example, here I can see the sales, CPA, conversion rate all the time on the same link. On the same link, I can create another page that focuses only on organic performance, for example, on Facebook. I can see how many people we reach, how many likes we get on likes, our engagement rate, and so forth, where our followers are coming from. And I can also have another page for Instagram performance. And that's organic performance, right? So imagine you have the paid channels, you have the organic channels, everything you need to actually get separately and create a report. These tools allow you to bring everything in one place, right? So that's a real life application of automating reporting. There are a lot of other ways to do it. Some of them are more advanced, some of them are less advanced, like Google Data Studio. What you see now, if you actually go through how it works, you will realize that it's not really rocket science. It's something that with just a 2 hours or 3 hours training, you probably be able to do exactly the same thing, automate entire reports and build very beautiful dashboards online, right? So that's an example of marketing automation in reporting, right? That's one thing that we can do. Now, why this is important? No more Excel sheets, no more PowerPoints, no more email attachments, because in the past, what we had to do was we had to email every week or every month or every Friday or every Monday. Hi, boss, this is my report, blah, 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 this is my report. Now, all we have to do is, this is the link. Bookmark the link. You can access it 24/7 online, whether it's Sunday, whether it's Friday, whatever time zone you are, the report is available, is updated real time. And we use the time that we save now from Excel, PowerPoint, email to interpret the data. So the time basically that we used to spend collecting this data like robots and crafting these reports, we can use it to basically make better decisions, observe trends. We have a lot more time to work on what really matters, which is the interpretation and the ideas, and not really the heavy duty of the heavy lifting of the data, right? So that's one way to automate things, right? I'm going to take you through these 3 points, and then in the end, we're going to have a free discussion with a Q&A, right? So the second pillar is optimization, right? So now again, optimization is something that without knowing, you already have it there by default. So this screen that I have here on the left, it comes from Facebook, right? So if you go and you run a Facebook campaign and you click on an ad set, for example, or a campaign, and you click on rules, edit, you go to rules, you will see that you can create your own optimization rules. The same thing happens with Google Ads. So you can actually, as a marketer, you can give the system instructions of what to do in certain cases. Things that you'll be discussing throughout the course. If this happens, then we need to increase bids. If that happens, then we need to decrease bids. If an ad is not performing, maybe we need to pause it. If a campaign is not delivering ROI, maybe we need to shift the budget. All these type of rules, if you sit down and you think about them, you can actually feed them back to the system, and you can actually create your own optimization rules. If you don't want to set up your own rules, or you feel that this is too risky, that's why both Facebook and Google and a lot of other platforms that are going to follow, they give you ready-made solutions, right? So ready-made solutions means if you've been through Google Ads, for example, maybe you remember the bid strategies that you have to choose in the platform, right? For example, when you run a Google Ads campaign, you can choose a strategy that says maximize clicks. This is a ready-made off-the-shelf strategy. Someone coded this strategy with some rules and told the system that adjust the bid up and down to make sure that we get the maximum number of clicks. On Facebook, there is a strategy that is called a cost cap, for example. We need a cost per acquisition of only $20 or $10. This is off-the-shelf strategy, which means that somebody coded this strategy, and we as marketers, we can go in and we can select this strategy off the shelf. So optimization automation is already there. Maybe it's not, in our faces, or maybe we don't really understand it, but we are already dealing in, and we're already operating in a scenario that most of the optimization is automated. Now, what is going to make the difference in the future, right? Because a lot of you, first of all, you may have two concerns, which are the questions that I always hear from either my students or third-party digital marketers. Some people are scared. They say, oh my God, if this is the case, we are going to get automated. Because if we don't really need to automate ourselves or optimize the campaign ourselves, then the machine is going to do it. We're going to lose our jobs. Some people are scared, and some people, maybe they think, okay, what is going to make a difference between, for example, marketing agency A and marketing agency B if we rely on the machine to optimize the campaign? Isn't it going to create a situation where more or less, whether you create a campaign or someone else, the campaign is going to perform at the same level because everything is optimized? The answer is we shouldn't be scared of automation, and also there are going to be a lot of differences, because where we are going now in terms of pay-per-click or PPC is we are going in an era where robots are going to compete with each other. We are going into an era of scripting, and this is how basically PPC is going to come closer with coding, with web development, right? So now I'm not really sure if you are already aware of it or if you've seen it maybe in some of the interfaces, but most advertising platforms, what we call advertising APIs, they allow you to create your own scripts. They allow you basically to go in, code your own logic, and manipulate your ad campaigns. On Google, this is very straightforward. If you go on Google Ads, you will see that there is basically an option that is called scripts, and you can go in and you can start coding immediately on JavaScript. On Facebook, it's a little bit a longer process. You can actually code in Python, and you need to connect an API, right? So some of you may say, okay, this is going too much, like into technical stuff. What is scripting? Do I need to know coding and so forth? You don't necessarily need to know how to code, but you need to know what is going to come in the future, right? So what do we mean by that is, for example, let me give you a visual also, right? So this is Google Ads. If you go to tools, under bulk actions here, there is an option that is called scripts. And then here you can basically add immediately writing your own script. What can you do now with these things? This is the important part of the important knowledge that you need to have. You need to understand what is coming up and what type of technology you're going to see in the future, right? First of all, you can code a scenario. We're going to start by some very simple scenarios that you can all understand, right? So what you can do with coding and scripting is, let's say you are advertising for an ice cream, for Ben and Jerry's, or for whatever. Think about your favorite ice cream. You can build a script that says, if it is raining in Jakarta, turn all my Facebook campaigns or all my Google campaigns off. If the weather is hot and sunny in Jakarta, turn all the campaigns on. If it's raining in Bali, don't advertise this ice cream. If the weather is sunny and it's amazing, advertise this ice cream. So that's a real life scenario that is being done already by a lot of brands also. Maybe not in our part of the world, because in our part of the world, there is no concept of seasons. It's just one season, hot, very hot, moderately hot, very humid or moderately humid. That's the situation that we live. But in UK, for example, in London, if it's sunny, it's like in the news, right? So if there is sun, everyone starts going out, traveling around in England and so forth, right? So a lot of ice cream brands, they play with weather conditions, believe it or not. In gaming, for example, they say, for example, especially in Europe, that has 4 seasons, or Japan, if it's raining, for example, people are probably going to stay home. It's an opportunity for us to push harder when it comes to our gaming app. If it's sunny, a lot more people are going to go outside. Maybe we need to decrease the bits. Essentially, with scripting, what you can do is you can think about any variable, even outside completely of the context of advertising, and you can connect that with something that is happening in your campaigns, in your paid campaigns, right? So another scenario that maybe is a little bit more practical. Imagine you are an e-commerce website. In Indonesia, you have a lot, right? So Lazada, Bukalapak, you have a lot of e-commerce websites. So imagine a scenario now that you have maybe unlimited inventory items. How many items you feel Lazada will have? Probably millions, right? For sure, they're going to have hundreds of thousands of SKUs, as we call it. Is it possible now for you as a marketer, if you work in a situation within a Lazada or within a company that big, to know and remember which items are in stock and which items are out of stock? And what if an item is out of stock and you need to pause it, for example, from your campaigns, right? So scripting helps us actually to automate this process. So these big companies are already applying some automation there when it comes to optimization. They have codes in place that say, if the product is sold out, or if the inventory is, let's say, less than 5 items in our warehouse, then go on our shopping ads and stop this product from running, from running online. If there is no stock, go to our Facebook ad and post this ad set, or don't advertise with this product in the catalog, go and remove it. If there is stock, then go and enable this ad set to go live, or this ad group to go live, right? So very straightforward and easy to understand scenario, to understand the value of how we connect basically scripts with what we do in real life. And then there are applications that are a little bit more outside the box, right? So outside the box means there is a tool that we call Google Trends. Okay, so most of you probably, you already know it. Google Trends show you over time how many people look for certain products as a trend. And then there are certain products that trend goes up and trend goes down. You can build a script, for example, that says, if the demand for product X increases, then start running some YouTube campaigns. If the demand goes back down, then pause these YouTube campaigns. Think about this application now for the stock market. If gold price goes above 2K USD, start advertising. If gold price falls, stop the advertising, or even adjust the ad copies. If, for example, the gold price today is 1,950 USD, then go to our ad copy, for example, on Facebook and replace the primary text with this price. Tomorrow the price goes up or goes down, take this price and update the ad. These are applications that are not really rocket science, they can be done, right? And even more can be done with this logic of scripting, right? So this is a little bit higher level, but you need to understand that these things actually are already being implemented at a small scale in different hubs throughout the world. And it's very likely that companies in the future will expand their capabilities, because the differentiation point between agency A and agency B will be who can actually build the better optimization algorithm, who can build a better robot, basically, right? And they're going to need two types of people. They're going to need people like us that understand what is going on Facebook ads, on Google ads, on all these advertising platforms, and understand the marketing side. And people like us, we need to give the instructions to the developers. It's not so much that we're going to lose our jobs or we need to learn coding, but someone needs to guide the developers, because the developers don't know a thing about marketing. They know how to code, however. We don't know how to code, but we know how these platforms work and how all these external, basically, variables affect our campaigns, right? So that's a few things that we can do when it comes to optimization automation, right? And why it is important is it saves time, you can act faster, you can think through your optimization in advance. So one benefit of optimization automation is that it forces you to think in advance. If this happens, how am I going to react? If something else happens, how am I going to react? It forces you to ask these questions to yourself before you execute the campaign, right? And then you can use your time to think strategically, right? So instead of dealing with micromanaging the bids every day or micromanaging the campaign budget allocation, for example, you can automatically do that. And again, here, just to understand that these things, you already experience them. Maybe you don't register that this is marketing automation, but when Facebook comes to you and says, you can have campaign budget optimization as an option, essentially what Facebook tells you is that we build an algorithm that takes data into account and then redistributes your budget to all these assets without you having to do this job as a marketer. This is an off-the-shelf optimization automation. Now, in the future, the question is, can we do better than that? Maybe with our own rules or our own version of reallocating budget, or we're going to rely to a third party. We're going to rely to what Google, Facebook, or some other companies are going to build, right? So that's where the future is going, right? When it comes to this part. Now the next bit, and then again, maybe as I speak, you can also feel free to ask questions, right? So you don't really forget what you want to ask. I can see we have a lot already, and that's great. So a few more things, and then we're going to go into an open Q&A. The last bit is implementation automation, right? So I'm not really sure whether you discussed CRM already, but if you did, for example, you've definitely been through email marketing drip campaigns or automated email marketing campaigns in a sequence, right? So this is one application of automating from the very beginning, automating our entire marketing implementation. For example, with email marketing, we can create a situation where when a user subscribes to our newsletter, they are immediately greeted with a welcome email. Then from there, they, depending on whether they open or they don't open, they get a different email. Depending on whether they visit the site or they bought something, they get a different email, and the automation continues. We can create similar automations now with social media, right? For example, we can create similar automations with Messenger. On Messenger, we can do the same thing. We can create a flow of interaction, Facebook Messenger, right? So when people ask you this, or when people say that, then this is the option that you need to give them. And then it evolves as a tree map. We can do the same thing with WhatsApp for Business. We can do the same thing with SMS marketing. In a very small extent, we're already experiencing that. When we move from country to country before COVID-19, we were getting an SMS, welcome to Malaysia, welcome to Indonesia, and so forth. And now the new frontier is how we can connect all these aspects together, right? So what this means is that how can you build a system where it's not only automating email marketing in isolation and automating, let's say, Facebook in isolation, it's a flow that is cohesive. So the new frontier is you start, for example, a lead generation campaign on Facebook. You advertise with an ad there. For this campaign, you are going to use an automated bidding strategy to begin with. Maybe you're going to have campaign budget optimization. So there is some automation applied in the very beginning of the process. From there, the user will click the ad. The user will submit a lead. This lead now is going to fall into your CRM and is going to kickstart an email marketing automation. So you see how Facebook advertising suddenly can be linked with what happens in CRM. You get the lead from Facebook, it falls into your CRM automatically because you can connect Facebook with your CRM. And then from there, it kickstarts an email marketing automation. And depending now in this process, depending on certain parameters, if someone, for example, clicks the ad and doesn't submit, then he's getting a remarketing campaign. If someone submits, he gets an email, but he doesn't open, then he gets a different email. If someone gets the email and opens it up, then he gets something else. So you can see how the whole system basically becomes cohesive, right? So you have a situation where all these channels are working synergetically, and we're not talking about an isolated lead generation campaign in one channel and something that is a different thing in CRM. We're talking about a flow and a sequence of communication. We can also automate now some day-to-day tasks. And in this concept that we're discussing now, this is very important, especially lead generations. For example, I had a client and I had a problem that for me, maybe it wasn't the biggest problem in the planet, but for me, it was a big issue. The client was a financial services company in Singapore, right? So there was a company that was helping people in the B2B context to get loans or get financial products. We were running lead generation campaigns on Facebook. So every 2 days, I was getting a WhatsApp from my stakeholder, my client, and my client was saying, can you please send me the Excel with the leads? Can you please send me the Excel with the leads? Can you please send me the Excel with the leads? And I was like, there's probably a better way to do this, right? So instead of me having to go inside Facebook every 2 days, download the leads and send it to them, or instead of them having to go into Facebook to the lead center that is now created, having to download the leads and upload them into CRM, there is definitely a way to automate the whole thing. So I don't have to send you an email. You don't have to go and physically update your CRM. So I did a little bit of research, and obviously I found a solution. There is a tool which is actually my favorite within the context of marketing automation, which is called Zapier, right? So Zapier is not something that you're going to think top of your mind, but is a tool that is going to help you to automate so many different things. And especially in a scenario that we live now, that we have so many different software, right? For example, now we are on Zoom and Slido. And then sometimes you're going to use Calendly. Some companies are going to use Microsoft Teams. Some companies are going to use this CRM, that CRM. There is a software for everything, and there are startups that are coming up with more software. You need to find a way to make this software communicate with each other, right? So through this tool, and this is the job of Zapier here, the job of Zapier is to make two software work together. As a broad concept, this is what it does. In our context now, what I build as an automation, which is very simplistic, but very powerful, is the moment that we were grabbing a lead from social media, this tool helped me to basically throw this lead into a Google Sheet. So I eliminated the part I didn't have actually to download the Excel sheet and send it through an email to my client. I said to my client, take this link to a Google Sheet. The leads are going to actually come as we speak. As we speak, you will see leads being updated on the Google Sheets. Every time there is a new lead, these leads are going to actually fall into this Google Sheet. And this is how it looks, right? So that's the actual sheet. That's what we are talking about now. So this is the old one, and now we made two more. Essentially, when people sign up on Facebook, this tool Zapier creates a new entry here. So I don't have to actually send them the leads to Excel sheet, and this is the node of the client. The client they just need to come here, pick up the leads, copy paste, and basically paste them into their CRM. As we speak, if there is a new lead, the tool will basically create a new line here, right? So we solved problem one, right? Then from there, you can take it one step further. For example, this tool can help you to connect Facebook with your CRM software. And this is what I've been doing for my own company a while ago, right? So I was running some campaigns and we were getting leads, for example, from social media. Through Zapier, I connected my own CRM, which was called Sendinblue. And then in Sendinblue, we were creating an email marketing automation that was actually immediately starting and had a lot of different steps. Now Zapier as a tool can help you to literally create any type of synergy, right? So imagine that another, for example, scenario, before COVID-19, I was planning to give some sessions in Manila, right? And I was advertising these sessions through Eventbrite. So Zapier helped me actually when someone, for example, bought a ticket through Zapier, through Eventbrite, then this tool helped me to take this email and automatically throw it into my CRM. And this tool also helped me to take this email and automatically send them an invite for Google Calendar, right? Or you can use this tool, for example, if someone signs up in your Calendly, then the tool can actually grab this email and throw it into a specific list in your CRM. And then from there, you can actually do something else and so forth, right? So this is day-to-day operations are actually quite interesting. They can all be done through this tool. Of course, this tool is paid, right? Before you get too excited. I think there is a free version, but most of it is actually paid. And the best tools and the ones that solve most of your problems are probably paid, although the cost is not that great, right? So typically the cost of these tools is reasonable. So why apply that? Again, faster response means higher conversion rate. This is key also when it comes to anything B2B, because imagine, for example, I want to buy a new car, right? So I submit a lead through an ad. If nobody calls me for 3-4 days, then I'll probably going to forget it. For example, now I want to start moving back some items to my home country because of COVID-19. And I was looking for an international moving company. I sent an email to 5 people. Only one company actually answered me same day. I'm still waiting for a reply from the rest of the companies. So faster response in the context of anything B2B means higher conversion rates. And it creates also a better branding for the company. It presents the company as people who care. That's a serious company that's going to get back to you in a minute. The moment you submit a form, immediately you get a response. You don't have to call them immediately, but you have to acknowledge that, yes, we received, for example, your request. It saves you time. You can actually build a lot of advanced communication tactics. And it's also fun actually to think through these things, right? So it's fun to think through not only what you're going to do, for example, on one channel, but how your strategy is going to evolve across the board. And it's fun to come up with all these different scenarios, right? So in the end of the day, implementing all these things is also, for us who work in digital marketing, is something that we like doing because the possibilities are endless. Even thinking about, let's think about a script that we can actually hire a developer and build and create something that is fun, or do something with a data scientist For example, one of my friends in London, he's a data scientist, and every 2 weeks we are on a call and we discuss, oh, can we actually build a script that goes to Google and finds the reviews of restaurants and ranks them in a dashboard, like kind of an automated thing like that. So all these things are also fun. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what marketing automation is all about in its more down-to-earth version, right? So, and one of the things that I'm trying to always communicate, especially to my students and people that I teach, is that things don't have to be intimidating, right? So all these buzzwords that we throw in digital marketing, if you actually go deeper and you go one layer behind under their skin and you start implementing them, you will realize that, oh, I've already been doing that, first of all, with a lot of these things, or it's not as hard as it sounds. It's not as fancy as it sounds, right? So all these buzzwords are sometimes, you know, agency gimmicks to impress clients, but in reality, it's not really something that is rocket science, right? So it's a very straightforward process to start implementing and executing all these things. Okay, so a lot of questions. That's more or less everything that I have for you on a slide format. So from now on, we can just keep it as an interactive session, right? And I'm going to start with the questions that I see here on Slido. Need to ask, what's your favorite set of tech stack for all marketing automation needs? And what are your points of consideration? That's a great question, right? So my favorite tools, I love Zapier and I love Google Data Studio. And for me, the point of consideration that I have is how can I do my job as simple and as cheap as possible, honestly speaking, right? So the first thing that I think when there is a challenge, even when the challenge is big and even if there are big brands involved, is this ambition that these people have, the ambition of connecting, for example, 2-3 different software, or the ambition of creating a report with so many different platforms, or the ambition of, let's say, creating a seamless journey. What is the easiest way to pull it off? Sometimes with just Calendly, Zapier, and Google Data Studio, that's all you need to actually create, you know, like a marketing automation plan, right? So you don't necessarily need data scientists, you don't need developers, you don't need, you know, like rocket science solutions, right? So you don't need a bazooka to kill an ant. That's like a phrase that we sometimes use, right? So with very simple tools, you can actually do your job very well.
I've never heard that one before. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, correct. So next question from Aloy, and apologies if I mispronounce your names, probably as hard as mine. Do you particularly use machine learning models for marketing automation? If you are, what kind of algorithm you use? So first of all, I'm not a developer and a coder myself. So machine learning is something that I hear out there, you know, as a buzzword. If you tell me implement it or build a code in machine learning, I cannot do it. I know a little bit of Python, and that's about it, right? So the answer is no, we don't really go into machine learning. But again, the mentality and also the mentality of what I try to do through my own businesses. And one of the reasons why I started my own business is because I figured that sometimes things are simpler than they are presented. And sometimes, again, even for big projects, companies, they are sold solutions that, for example, there is a very big case study. It's not on marketing automation, but there's a very big case study on how Hertz failed building a booking platform. So Hertz, the car rental company, they wanted to build a website to book cars, right? And they went to work with Accenture, which is one of the biggest consulting names. And I think the solution that they went through was like $32 million. So imagine you spend $32 million for basically building a single website, right? A single platform. That's kind of crazy. So one of the reasons why I built my own company is because I realized that sometimes these companies are getting oversold or overpromised. So machine learning is something that is great to hear and listen to, but first of all, it's not the solution for everything. And believe it or not, also, it's not as hard as it seems, right? So it has also some prerequisites. For example, you need to have the right data to apply, for example, this predictive analytics model, because my background, my very first degree was in economics and finance, and I know a little bit of statistics. And also I have friends that work in data science and they work in predictive analytics. So it's not a, you know, a panacea, as we call it, right? So it's not a solution that it fits every business. And it's not something that you can execute for everything also. There are scenarios where you can go with machine learning and this is going to be very useful. But machine learning for an SME or a medium-sized company, for example, they don't really need them on a day-to-day, right? So they don't really need to bother with these concepts. If you are a Lazada or if you are a very big company, then yes, you can discuss predictive analytics because you have the volume of data and you can see how you can get all this data and you can predict, for example, flight cancellations, you can predict demand over time, you can predict a lot of different things, and then you can feed these things back to the machine to start learning and start improving, right? So for me, we don't really go into that depth. Hopefully in the future we will, however, right? If you ask about myself, the only coding language that I know at least how to build a few things that work is Python. I know a little bit of JavaScript, but very basic. Okay, what are the challenges in marketing automation if you have to connect offline and online fields? So that's also a great question. The challenge is always availability of data. As a digital marketer also, when you go and you start working with your business, one of the very first things that you need to do is to implement some organization in that company, right? So the biggest challenge that we face is that most companies are not really very organized in terms of how they collect data. For example, they may be a restaurant, but maybe they don't really have any customer database. They never collected a single email. Or maybe they are an online business and people are buying from their website, but they are not really keeping a database of who buys from the website. Or maybe they are a consultant, people are doing business with them, but maybe they are not really organizing them in a clean way. A real life scenario, for example, I have a client that they have at least 150 different lists on MailChimp, and every list have 150 emails, 200 emails, 45 emails. What they are lacking basically is this organization, right? So every time, for example, there is a class, they create a new audience and then a new audience and then a new audience. So the main challenge starts from not grabbing the data and creating these connections, but do we have the foundations to actually implement some sort of automation? Do we collect data in an organized way and we store them properly so that on top of that, we can actually come and build whatever we want to build? So we always need to start with the foundations, which in a real life analogy is the same with everything, right? So you cannot really build a skyscraper if you don't really, set proper foundation, right? You cannot just go without anything and just build a massive building on top of that. You need to find a way to organize everything you do first. Since we cannot connect Facebook IG to Google Data Studio automatically, what partner connectors did you use? That's also an excellent question. So Google Data Studio connects automatically with everything Google. And when we say everything Google, there are a lot of platforms that can be connected, right? So analytics, Google Ads, Search Console, YouTube Analytics, big data query, some things that developers use. There are a lot of platforms that connect immediately with Google Data Studio. But you are right that anything that is non-Google, for example, HubSpot or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, you cannot really connect it for free. You need a third-party software, a third-party connector. There are a lot of connectors out there. The one that I'm using personally is called Supermetrics. If you go on Google and you type in Supermetrics, you will find the company is based in Finland. The company is just a software that all it does is grab data from one place and pushing them into another. I don't want to promote them necessarily. I know that there are a lot of other companies that do the same thing. Why I'm using them is because of convenience, right? Convenience means because they're one of the oldest solutions, I can use my subscription to connect data from Facebook, from Instagram, from LinkedIn, from different CRMs. They have a lot of different options, a lot of different connectors to choose from, right? So, but there are also other paid connectors that do the same job. In the end of the day, you have to also consider the pricing, right? So pricing is important, especially if you are an SME. If my business transaction doesn't occur in a website, leads come to a website, but we follow up manually. How do you automate such a scene? So the first thing you need to do is you need essentially to break down the problem in steps. This is something that myself, I have a background in business and finance, and then I went and studied marketing as a master in UK, and then I started working in digital marketing. It took me a very long time, but when I started learning a little bit of coding, I'm definitely not a programmer. You know, I can code very basic things, but when I started learning programming, one of the skills that I picked up was not really how to program. It was how to break a problem into steps, which is also a very important skill to have in life in general, because I realized that this is something that we shouldn't only apply in programming. This is something we can apply in everything that we do. In digital marketing, for example, in your situation. So here you have a scenario, right? The first thing you need to do is you need to break this problem into steps. The first step is leads are coming online through a website. Challenge number one or problem number one that you need to solve is how can you automate this portion? This portion meaning what can I do to make sure that when the lead comes in, it goes and it stores itself automatically on a Google Sheet, or it goes and it stores itself automatically in my CRM. How can I organize this first step, right? Then you go to the second step, which is now that I solved problem one, I'm storing the lead automatically from a website form into Google Sheets or my CRM, whatever this may be, and I managed to execute that. How can I create a situation where instead of following up manually, maybe you still need to follow up manually, but maybe before you do that, you need to actually trigger, for example, an email campaign. Can we create a scenario where now that we have a list in our CRM getting these leads, we can kickstart, for example, a mini automation? And it doesn't have to be complicated, right? You can start with one email, then you check this box. Then from there you go and you say, okay, how can I enhance that now, right? So now, for example, is there anything that I can automate beyond that welcome email? I'll give you an example because all these things may sound theoretical. Let's say you are into the wedding business, right? So weddings. The first thing is you need to get leads. You need to find people that get married and they want to plan their wedding, okay? Then from there, maybe you are going to go in social media, create a form. Are you getting married? We can help you, blah, blah, blah. Then you may realize the first problem that is going to come to mind is that every time that I have a call with these people, every time I call them, I ask them the same things. I ask them, when are you getting married? What type of wedding you need to actually you are interested in? How many people you're going to invite? Do you have a budget? There are some standard questions, right? So one opportunity basically for automation is there. Can we actually create a scenario where instead of every time we call them, we ask them the same question, we get the lead, and then we send them an email and we say, before our call on Saturday or before we give you a call, can you actually give us a few more information on what you are looking for, right? So can you actually fill in this form? Maybe even, and think simply, right? Even on a Google Forms, you trigger an email, there is a Google Forms link, how many people you want to invite, what type of wedding you want to go after, blah, 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 right? Then from there, someone may say, okay, now next step, problem one solved, problem two solved. Every time that we get this information, what we do, we send them a proposal. Can we create a scenario where, depending on their answers, we can actually pre-populate a proposal, right? Can we create a mini calculator, basically, that if they tell us this is our budget, and this is our concept, we can actually automatically populate some sort of a proposal, right? So all these things can be done, are not really rocket science. But again, the way you need to think is in a sequence, right? So one problem at a time. Because if you start, the biggest challenge with automation is if you start thinking about the big picture, you're probably going to get overwhelmed. You're going to be like, oh my God, there are so many things. I don't even know how to execute them, right? So one thing at a time is probably the mindset here. Okay, so between all digital channels like Facebook, Google, which one would you prefer for newly established business and existing one? So this question is very broad in a way, because that I always say again in my students, right? So marketers are a little bit like doctors also. Right? This may sound strange, but imagine you go to a doctor and you end there, and when the doctor looks at you and says, the way you look today, you have COVID-19, then you're going to be like, that's a joke, right? This is definitely not a doctor. Why you're going to say that? Because a doctor, what he's going to do is he's going to say, let's take your blood test, let's send you for an X-ray, let's check you, for example, how you're breathing and all that. Then he's going to get the data, look at them, and then he's going to say you have this disease or this condition and you need this medicine. The same thing a lawyer will do. You're not going to enter a lawyer and then the moment you open the door will say, the way you look today, probably you came for a divorce, right? So the lawyer will say, okay, tell me what is your situation. I'm going to go have a look at what are the options. I'm going to come back to you. The same logic is also important in marketing, right? So if I tell you now, you need to actually go and do Google or Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm falling into the same trap. I'm like a crazy doctor. Without knowing anything about your business, I'm just giving you a solution. So the first thing that I need to know, or is not about me now in a situation, in a real life situation, the first thing that you need to do with all your projects is first you need to understand, right? So you need to understand what is the target audience, what is the industry, what is the competition, what are the unique selling points of this company, what is the branding of this company, right? So you need to understand everything around the current situation before you can actually go and tell them, I looked into all these data points and I recommend you to go with Google. I recommend you going with Facebook. There are so many variables in marketing that one thing that we can definitely not automate is the marketing strategy. This I can tell you for a fact, right? Marketing strategy is never going to be automated because of the complexity of the different scenarios that we have online. Okay, so how far should marketing automation affect our decision making, or should we prioritize it only for our manual tasks? Marketing automation will never replace your thinking. Actually, this question ties very well with what we've been discussing, right? So it's never going to replace strategic thinking. And I don't foresee a situation where automation is going to replace the need of having a human that is going to think about, let's say, a marketing strategy, or is going to make top-level strategic decisions, right? So automation will help you to eliminate probably all the operations in the future, all the optimization tasks, and will allow you will enable you to build a marketing system, which means a flow that starts from advertising, continues with CRM, and then with human interaction and so forth. It will help you to build these marketing systems, optimize these marketing systems, but is not very likely that it's going to make marketing decisions for you. So interpreting the data and taking action on this data, especially strategic decisions, will still be something that humans will do much better than a machine, because the machine doesn't have empathy, right? And also a lot of things in marketing, essentially there is always a synergy between the quantitative part and the qualitative part. There is always a need to understand the customer, understand the communication, and empathize with what we are communicating, and also need to understand the data. These two are connected. The algorithms are very good now in terms of understanding the quantitative part of it. I don't believe the technology is yet there to solve the qualitative issues we have, right? So maybe in the future there will be. a scenario when things will actually go there. Definitely, there's going to be a scenario where machines will understand speech. And what I urge you to do after the session, I think also now that I remember about it, I should have shown you this video before. I want you to go to YouTube and type in basically Google conversational bot. You will find a video is this guy, the CEO of Google, basically 2 or 3 years back, he's holding a conference in San Francisco. And in this conference, he's presenting the latest developments in natural language processing. Essentially, what Google has already built as of 2.5 years back. This is not something that they are building or future or something. As of 2.5 years back, they've already built a program that it can understand speech and it can converse with humans. And that's built for SMEs. For example, you pick up your phone and you call a barbershop and you say, I want to book an appointment. You are conversing with a robot on the other end that has a human voice, but you don't know that it's a robot. And the robot is able to understand your speech, interpret it, and gives you back the right answer. This is a video that is very, very interesting, actually, that you can watch on YouTube. I strongly recommend you to go and have a look at it to understand what is coming up on that qualitative aspect, right? So the technology is already there. And that's why we always say that this is the future, because if Google is let's say in a position now to release this software in the market, it means that all call centers in the future will be automated with this type of technology, right? And then again, the job of the marketer will be to coordinate the flow in the background and give directions and make strategic decisions.
Sotirios, what was the video name that you mentioned earlier?
Let me actually, I'll just
share it in the chat.
Yeah, I'll just find it in the background, and then I'll present it, right? Let me see. Anyway, I'll just answer the questions and then try to find it and share it with you, because I think it's a very, very interesting case study. This one, right? I'm just stuck now. I can't really think about how it's called on YouTube. Okay, so a few more questions I think we have to solve here. What do you think of automated ads personalization such as Vogon? Will this be the future? I'm not really familiar with this solution, to be honest, but there are a lot of platforms, is what I believe this software does. There are a lot of platforms that are personalizing advertising on the basis of what you did on the platform, or on the basis of what you clicked. We also have solutions like dynamic ads, for example, already on Facebook, that based on what you click, for example, on a website, they serve you an ad on exactly that. There are a lot of software that actually are already personalizing different areas of digital marketing, right? So this software will probably see a lot more solutions like that. The challenge that the industry is facing at the moment is, can we create a solution that is kind of universal, right? Because at the moment we are operating in silos. In silos means we are basically operating in a way where there is one solution works only for Google, one solution works only for Facebook. Okay, so I found this video. One moment. Come on. Oh, maybe I didn't. No, actually, I didn't really find the video. Anyway,
is the video shared by Nella in the chat what you're looking for?
Let me check. No, we definitely have to watch this video, actually. Right? Yeah, Google Duplex, correct. right? So that's the,
if you manage
that's
a team,
the video.
you have.
So this video that Nella basically shared in the chat, you have to watch it after the session to understand what the technology is. And the most fascinating part of this video is the timestamp. The timestamp is May 8, 2018. Today we have 18 of August 2020. We are 2 years ahead of what you are going to actually watch in this video. So definitely watch this video, what Google is already doing, what Google has already built with Google Assistant and Duplex to understand where marketing automation is going and what you're going to see in the future, right? So we should always, and digital marketing is something that always evolves, right? So when you watch this video, you will understand that there are a lot of opportunities that will open up on how you connect these different platforms and how you can actually work within the wider concept of marketing automation. Okay, do you have any handy tips to introduce and convince your clients for marketing automation, especially if all this time they are used to do it in the old ways? That's a great question. Sometimes there are two types of clients, right? So there are clients that understand that they need a change. There are clients that understand that they need to build basically capabilities to do things more efficiently. And it's easy to work with these clients. I think also COVID-19 accelerated this process of companies want to digitize and transform. There are some other clients that are not as receptive. But for me, the most important tip is you need to show them an actual case study. I don't think that you can sell, you know, the concept of marketing automation theoretically. But if you show them, this is how a Google Data Studio looks like, and this is a report that you can access every day, then they can actually see it, they can interact with it, then they are convinced. If you actually start small, for example, let's create an automation in email. Let's create an automation on how leads are coming through, for example, and how we follow up. So once they see how a small part of marketing automation work, then they are probably going to get a little bit more excited, and they're probably going to ask for it themselves, right? But always what happens in this part of, you know, marketing is that seeing is believing, right? And this is also because a lot of these companies, they have in the back of their minds that these solutions are very expensive, or we have to be a very big company to do these things, which is not always the case, right? So if you have a tangible case study that you can actually show them, or a mini automation that you build, for example, that you can actually send them as a demo, that's the best way to go into it. The last one is programmatic as equivalent with marketing automation. That's also a great question. Programmatic is also another interpretation of marketing automation. Essentially, programmatic as a whole is automating display buying. Essentially, this is it. Like, as a technology, what programmatic is not a channel, is not another platform, is a way that allows you to buy inventory faster and more efficient. So it's another actual interpretation of what we call marketing automation, especially for display. And since you mentioned programmatic, right? And because I come also from a media background, what is the difference before programmatic and with programmatic? The difference is that before programmatic, when I was in MediaCom in Dubai, we had a team of 30 people. 25 of them were media planners, planning and buying. The job of these people was to receive the brief, contact the suppliers, get the rates, create a media plan, negotiate the media plan, put all these things in Excel, send them to the client, get approval or feedback, connect again back with the suppliers, renegotiate, come up with a final media plan, and then execute. And then for the execution, there was also a lot of operations. You had to raise a purchase order, you had to send the purchase order to all the suppliers, you had to send them the material. Very big process and very inefficient. Programmatic came in to eliminate all these things, and it already did, because now you don't need 25 media planners. You need 3 programmatic professionals. And these guys are going to do the job of 25 people through an online platform. They're going to connect with suppliers online. They are going to buy inventory online. There is no need for flying documents, purchase orders, right and left with finance departments. Everything is just going to centralize itself through whatever tool these companies are using, right? So that's also another interpretation of marketing automation that we've already experienced. Maybe we didn't register that this is marketing automation, but it is. That's, you are bang on this question. Okay, that's great. We've been through a lot of questions. Anything else that
Hi guys, if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can ask directly to Sotirios. We have another 15 minutes, but if there's no questions, then we'll just end it. So if you guys want to keep going, make sure to ask your questions. So while we're waiting for someone to ask a question, I just want to share that tonight's lecture has batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, and some batch 4 students all together. So it's a mixed bag of a lot of graduates, a lot of alumni, and also existing students and future students. So hopefully, you know, tebar pesona kalian, and then get to share some really interesting questions. Show them what you got. So anybody has a question for Sotirios? Anything regarding marketing automation? Anything that you want to ask? Okay, so no one's raising their hand. Do you think I should, Sotirios, do you think I should point? Oh wait, we have a question from Ronald.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky for everyone, you've been saved by Ronald. Ronald, go ahead.
Okay.
I have a question. It is a follow-up question regarding the programmatic ads that I asked earlier. So is marketing automation is also have some kind of ad fraud that something that identifies if someone or your leads is a fraud or real human?
That's also something that potentially can be solved partially with programmatic, because there are more restrictions there. So now we have something that we call viewability. Viewability means that, especially for programmatic, you only pay for impressions that are viewed by a human. A lot of people don't know it, but 10 years ago, when you load the page, so let's say you open now a website, right, a magazine. 10 years ago, when you loaded the website, every single banner, whether it was up front or whether it was in the footer, it will record an impression. Clients didn't know that. So clients basically were looking at impressions numbers and were thinking, okay, all these impressions, they are viewed by a human. That was not true. The situation back then was that the moment the page was loading, the banner automatically was recording one impression. At some point, they picked up that there is something fishy with the whole thing. So the industry kind of regulated the space with something that we call viewability, right? So now there are certain guidelines that for an impression to be recorded or for a client to pay for an impression, it needs to be a viewable impression, which means that at least half the banner needs to be in full view for 2 seconds, if I remember right, in order for the system to record an impression. And because of the lack of technology in the past, we also had a lot of ad fraud. As Ronald said, there were a lot of cases that the clicks were not really genuine, or we're getting a lot of clicks that were not really human clicks, they were robots. There is a trick now of how you can actually understand if clicks are legit, if clicks are not really fake, and if there is ad fraud. If you see that you are getting traffic that has 100% bounce rate and 0 time on site, this is a red flag. And the moment you see a scenario that from one campaign I get traffic with 100% bounce rate, 0 time on site, it probably means that there is a lot of ad fraud there. Programmatic as a solution, it comes with some of these benefits of being able to detect ad fraud with viewability metrics embedded in the software that we use. So yes, you are right in what you say. So it is also a way to combat ad fraud. But the biggest benefit of programmatic is not really combating ad fraud. The biggest benefit is that what I explained before, right? That there was a situation where you had to go and negotiate with 20 publishers, and you had to go in 3 different networks and set up campaigns. Instead of doing that, now you just go to one interface. So you're not going to send 20 emails, and you're not going to have 3 different accounts on Google Ads, Bing Ads, and maybe a different network. You're just going to log in once in one software, and everything is managed through that process centrally. On that note, also, there are solutions in the market. You may, for example, already heard about data management platforms, because with data also we face this type of issue. But for reporting, we are solving with solutions like Google Data Studio. But when we have a situation that exceeds marketing, for example, in life, not everything is marketing. For if you have a business, we are collecting data, a lot of different types of data, right? And sometimes companies need to have so many different sources. Now we have technological solutions we call data management platforms, central warehouses of data where all the platforms are connecting, and we manage all the data from one single point instead of logging in 20 different platforms, right? That's another solution that it falls under what we call marketing automation as a wide discussion. Cool. Any other questions?
So before we go on to the next question and leading towards the end of tonight's session, I wanted to mention that for everyone, for all of you, the students here, I truly believe that many of you will become digital marketing leaders in the future, and you will also become teachers. You will be instructors. You will teach others. And just like Sotirios sharing with you now, you'll find that when you teach, you learn a lot for yourself. And then also when you teach, your passion in teaching others and making sure that they learn something, you also seek feedback. You want to hear feedback from the people that you just shared. So with that in mind, I want Amel to share the link for you guys to click, all of you here, to kind of give us your feedback on tonight's session. And it's also something that we will recap and send to Sotirios as a thank you as well, to give him some feedback on the invaluable things that he shared tonight. So for all of you, please definitely, kind of give your feedback. And fortunately, we have 2 questions. The first one is from Osel. 3 now, okay? So Osel, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, Sotirios. So up until now, we're talking about automating the action, right? The implementation to the market. But is there any way to automate the marketing intelligence? I mean, like researching about the competitors, something like that.
There is, but for that you'll have to be a little bit more advanced, right? So I think for that you'll have to employ a little bit of data science. I don't know how much people know about data science, but data science is the type of technology that we apply when we want to do exactly what you just mentioned now. For example, we want to always be up to date when it comes to how many reviews our customers have. Or we want to be up to date in terms of the sentiment. For example, if our competitors have positive reviews or negative reviews, and we want to compare ourselves with these guys. Now, you can do that manually, right? So manually every week or every 3 days or every month, you can actually go take this data, place them into Google Sheets, and then visualize them. Obviously, this is not very convenient, right? And this is where data science comes in. Essentially, what these guys are doing with data science is they're building a code that instead of you going manually and grabbing the reviews and then visualize them, the algorithm goes there every 3 days, it pulls the reviews, it updates a document, then you analyze the data. The same thing you can do, for example, with Google Trends, or even, let's say, Google Keyword Planner, intelligence, right? So typically what we do now is we manually go into Google Ads, we put in a few keywords, you download the Excel sheet, you analyze the results. You manually go into Google Trends, you type in something, you look at the trend lines. Or you manually, let's say even people who are into trading, stock markets, gold, commodities, all that, they had to manually monitor, for example, certain movements, right? So data science is the type of technology that we need to automate the marketing intelligence. And why we need data science is because this type of information will live in a lot of different environments. You may want to pull the weather from one source and the stock price from another source, and the keyword volumes from a Google source, but then you may also want to go to Statista and get, let's say, some other data from there. So in order to connect all these things in a meaningful way, you will need someone who understands the principles of data science and how you can actually build a code that communicates with all these data sources and give you back the data. This is how also SEO software work. SEO software, for example, Ahrefs or SEO Moz, or even, let's say, the Neil Patel tool, when you go in there to get the insights, this is exactly what they've been doing, right? So this type of software as a service tools that we use for SEO, for example, or SEMrush, this type of solutions, that's exactly the technology or the problem that they're trying to solve. What you just asked me now is what these guys are implementing, but for a specific field. For example, the SEO software, they just go and they look into links and certain, for example, things on websites, and then they feed you back this information. They automate marketing intelligence for SEO. We have ready-made tools that they live in specific environments, right? So you can buy an SEO intelligence tool. You can buy a competitive intelligence tool that will tell you about Google search. You can buy competitive intelligence tools for Amazon, for example. If you're advertising in US, there are tools that you can pay a subscription and they can tell you the search queries, for example, inside Amazon, how many clicks certain products are getting, an estimate of how popular certain products and so forth. So now these are the ready-made solutions that you can pay to purchase, right? If you tell me that I want to create my own logic, which is probably, I think, where your question is coming from, then you'll need to work with a data scientist and say, this is what I want to build. Can you execute it, right? I want to build a software that pulls some data from somewhere and does something, right? And that's also how these solutions are built, right? That's why I'm always saying that sometimes we look at tools like SEMrush, or we look at tools like SEO Moz or Ahrefs, or all these intelligence tools, and we think that, oh my God, this is rocket science. We are going to Mars, like Elon Musk. In reality, it's not really that far away from everything we do on a day-to-day basis. It's just understanding what is the starting point, and then finding the right people that can actually code this in a script and translate it in a UI. And then you have your data, you have your intelligence automation, right? So intelligence automation, in other words, is already in place for certain topics and certain areas. If you want to build your own, it is also possible with the evolution of coding languages now. Cool. Any last thoughts or questions?
Two more. One from Aloy. Go ahead, Aloy.
Okay. Hello, Sotirios.
Hi.
So I'm really looking forward for this topic, actually, because earlier this year I got the chance to create some programmatic platform for my company, and my question is relates to that exactly. How does programmatic is being adapted in the Southeast Asian market? Because from what I get, my insights said that not a lot of marketers do a lot of programmatic, but if you compare it to the counterpart in the European or maybe US market, there has been a lot of programmatic companies for DSP and SSP and DMP as well. So how do you see the Southeast Asian market growth for the programmatic ads? Is it gonna be implemented in the near future or not?
That's an interesting question, right? So I would say that programmatic, for me, the way I see it, right? So in order for programmatic to become mainstream, it has to evolve beyond display advertising and beyond video also, right? So two things need to happen for programmatic to be mainstream, right? So one, the digital outdoor solutions need to accelerate very fast, and also the TV, online TV needs to accelerate very fast. So programmatic can actually come as an umbrella and say, now, apart from display and video, you can also buy outdoor and TV ads through programmatic, or even radio. So for programmatic to become mainstream, this technology that connects TV, radio, and outdoor needs to actually grow, and this needs to happen. At the moment, it's not really happening. You cannot really buy radio ads in most countries through programmatic, or you cannot really buy outdoor in most countries. This is something that is going, very slowly. Or programmatic needs to actually go and include platforms like social media. The main reason I think why the growth of programmatic kind of halted, in my opinion, is because social media platforms, and especially the big two, for example, Facebook, Google, they outpaced the solution technologically, right? So they basically penetrated the market faster. They created platforms that are much more user-friendly. They developed solutions. Now, for example, it used to be called Google AdWords. Now they rebranded it into Google Ads because it does more than paid search. You can go on Google Ads, you can run YouTube ads, you can run discovery ads, you can run display ads. In the future, maybe you are going to be able to do a lot more things, right? So the main issue in adoption that I see is that other technologies outpaced programmatic, right? So they evolved faster. And now we have platforms that encompass a lot of very powerful solutions. So there's not a lot of, it's not something, let's say, that is on the top of the agenda, right? And especially we see the rise also of completely irrelevant things in terms of programmatic, but we've seen the rise of content marketing. We've seen click-through rates actually dropping for paid channels and a lot of people going into content. We've seen SEO actually coming back and becoming more important than ever. So if you actually look at the agenda of digital marketing, programmatic, when it started, it used to be top. Everybody was like, yes, that's the future. But then with all this evolution of social media technology, the way that the culture changed, and especially now also with COVID-19, we've seen it, the technology itself has been massively outpaced by other channels, other solutions, other areas, right? So now more people are interested in content marketing, or even, let's say, CRM that used to be ignored 5-6 years back, as opposed to, let's say, spending through programmatic. And also, whenever there is a recession, now with COVID-19, we're probably going to be in a recession for a couple of years for the wider economy. Not so much for our industry. Our industry is probably going to keep growing because everything goes digital, but the wider economy is probably going to experience a recession. Whenever we see a recession, massive budgets are getting cut, which means there are less opportunities for companies to go into programmatic, right? And that's, I think, why the adoption in Asia is not as expected or as predicted in the past, because the agenda changed, the technology changed, cultural situation changed. So for programmatic to be relevant again, they need to recalibrate the technology and try to make it, to open it up to more channels, right? So this is my personal opinion on why, the adoption is not going to be as expected or as it was expected in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I think the final question is from, last but not least, Alfian. Silakan. Alfian, you there?
Oh, okay. Hello. I just curious about cost saving. With your experience, how far can marketing automation save marketing costs? Maybe an example in percentage illustration.
So I think you're cutting your voice, right? So can you repeat maybe one more time?
Oh, with your experience, how far can marketing automation save marketing costs? Maybe an example in percentage illustration.
I think we can save a lot, but that depends also on, let's say, what companies used to do in the past, right? For example, just as a quick example, right? So you can see, for example, this Google Data Studio report, right? For this business, let's say, here. In the past, and when I say in the past 3-4 years ago, if you were to go to a company and said, I want to build a dashboard, that I want to connect my Instagram data, which is what we are looking at the moment. And I also want this platform to deep dive into my Instagram performance. And I also want this platform to present me my Facebook performance, but I also want this platform to connect, let's say, Facebook ads and Google ads on the same dashboard. They would say, that's great, $20,000 or $30,000. The same dashboard now, we can build it with a cost of $2,000 or less, even less actually, depending on the scope of work. So this is one example of marketing automation and how much impact it has on bottom line for some of these tech solutions, right? So companies essentially that used to build these massive dashboards for crazy, using crazy budgets are out of business because of Tableau, Power BI, and Google Data Studio. That's one way that you can save costs. If you watch this video also, and if you remember what we said about automating customer service, you will immediately understand that customer service cost is minimized to the bare minimum, right? So for example, companies, they needed to have a couple of people just picking up phone calls or replying to customers. With marketing automation in place, probably the human resource cost is not really going to be that high. Companies needed to hire 25 media planners only to buy media. Now they need 4. Again, the cost of basically the human resources they need for that particular aspect of the business is going massively down, right? So there is a very significant impact in the bottom line, right? Even for example, on what I'm doing here in Singapore, the main reason why I'm able to run, for example, the business that I run is to a very large extent marketing automation, right? Because in a traditional setting, I would need a lot of humans, a lot of people to do reporting, to do optimization, to implement, and so forth. And again, don't think that this means that we're not going to find jobs. It's just that jobs are migrating, right? So jobs are not going to focus on administrative tasks or human intensive, let's say labor intensive tasks. We will need people with a different skill set. So instead of hiring, for example, and then going back as we finish the session on the role also that I'm hiring for, instead of hiring, for example, people that do data entry, create reports, and deal with Excel sheets, we can save all this cost and we can hire a person that will help us to improve our creative, our content, and what we communicate online. So the priority is basically, you can actually think from a completely different point of view, right? So once you eliminate all these tasks, then you can shift the budget or you can shift the focus in completely different tasks. In every aspect, you think about whether it's called implementation, optimization, non-reporting, you will see that there is always a cost-saving opportunity, right? The biggest cost savings for me are in reporting and optimization. And then as the technology progresses, then you can also save costs on the implementation. And that's why that's a little bit out of context. But for those of you who follow the financial news, you will see that despite the crisis and despite what is happening in the world, the stock markets and especially tech companies, the value of the tech companies goes up. Why the value goes up? Because now that everything is digital, what we need is software solutions that will help us actually to build these capabilities, right? And that's why most of these tech companies are actually increasing in value, right? The Googles, the Facebooks of the world, Netflix, and so forth. So yeah, back to your question, I think there is a cost-saving opportunity anywhere, right? So by default, marketing automation will save a lot of either human costs or different costs associated with the business, depending on the scenario. Okay, great. So,
well, yeah. So thank you for your question, Alvian. And I just wanted to add to highlight Sotirios' point. I think it's just automation, like technology, the purpose of which is just to make things more efficient and more effective. And in the end, you know, it is about being able to do more but also it's also about saving and being more efficient, right? And I think personally, when I was listening to Sotirios, I think also there's a lot of automation happening around us, right? Just look at everything around you, there's automation. And once you start observing automation happening all around you, then you'll start observing potential for automation with what you're doing, right? Regardless of what your job is. And in this specific instance, it's about marketing. It's about what you do every day with marketing. And if you can make your tasks more efficient and more effective, and if there's no tool, you can develop it yourself. But if there's a tool, you can use it to reduce the amount of manual work that you do, or make your work more effective, then that opportunity is there. And I think the inspiration comes from the reason why technology exists, which is to make things more efficient and more effective. For example, in real life, you could see, like, when you enter a toll, maybe 10, 20 years ago, there was someone that actually takes your money and gives you change, whereas that's being replaced by an actual automatic toll booth. And I think that process is the same process by which you should approach your marketing tasks. How can I make a computer replace some of the things that I do on a regular basis? And really, the way I see it, based on Sotirios's presentation, what's really interesting is the first thing that usually gets automated are the redundant, repeatable tasks. And those are usually the most easiest to do. But having said that, Sotirios, thank you for your time tonight. That was very eye-opening. And I love the fact that it was very structured in terms of like the first step towards thinking about automation. So the first step is always about mindset. And I think there was a lot of examples. There's two things that I want to say before we go. The first is to repeat again that, you know, we'd love to get your feedback, and I'm pretty sure Sotirios would love to get your feedback on how tonight went, you know, especially if you've learned something, if good things, you know, compliments, but if there's something that could be improved, that's also something that I'm pretty sure Sotirios would be very open to listening. So critical feedback. The second thing is to remind you that Sotirios is looking for someone to join him at XYZ Lab, initially as an apprentice through RevoU Labs, and it's open for batch 3 students, right? So sorry for the guys that are batch 4, sorry the guys that are in batch 2 and 1. This is specifically for the active students in batch 3. If you're looking for work experience, if you're looking for an apprenticeship, I will share the details in the chat room. Have a read of the job description, have a read of, you know, all of the requirements. Sotirios has created a application form and a test, right? So it's not that easy to get this. So you got to complete the test, and then we will notify you if you're successful for the next phase. Just FYI, you are replacing a previous RevoU student that was working with Sotirios. And that person has recently been hired as a digital marketing specialist for a startup called Ubiclan. So the position is open. It's for a content marketing executive and reporting directly to Sotirios and working closely with him. So just a hint, you know, definitely reach out to him on LinkedIn and say hi. And this is as good a moment as any to say, hey, I attended your class tonight. Love to connect. And if you have any questions, you can direct it to him directly. Having said that, I'll share the more details in the Slack group, right? And if you have any questions, you can come to me or you can go to Sotirios directly. Having said that, thank you for tonight. We have the recording set up. We will share it with you. And for those of you that don't show up, hopefully they can watch the recording. Sotirios, thank you very much once again. Hopefully we get you to come by and share again sometime soon, if not for batch 4.
Thank you so much, Sotirios.
Thank you for inviting
Cheers.
me. And also say hello to everyone from, you know, the batches that I was an instructor in. I also missed your accent, guys. Right? It's only my accent that
so you missed the Indonesian accent.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Cool. Yeah,
have a great night, Sotirios. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.